Good morning, everyone. And thank you to this very special program. Our regular Sabbath school class has been replaced by a very special feature that we'd like to introduce briefly to you this morning. Over the next hour, we will have a chance to have a conversation with Maestro Herbert Blomstedt. If you know of him and you know about him, you're already very excited. If you don't, then you will be excited by the time we finish our conversation this morning, and in a second I'll tell you just a little bit more about him. What you need to know from the very beginning is that Dr. Blomstedt is a very accomplished and a very respected conductor and a dedicated Seventh-day Adventist all at the same time. And we're going to explore that just a little bit as we get into our conversation. Now, a very quick note. Mark, Willey, and I, Mark as the longtime minister of music here at Spencerville Seventh-day Adventist Church, Mark and I are going to explore the gift of music by asking Dr. Blomstedt for his wisdom and for his insight. But because we only have an hour, we could probably go for several hours. What do you think, Mark? But because we only have an hour, I think that we will focus our questions on the role of music in church, the role of music in the context of worship, and if we have time, we'll explore other facets, but we'll try to focus our questions toward those ends. Now, with that in mind, because we want to spend most of our time talking with Dr. Blomstedt, just a very, very short bio so that at least those of you who aren't aware of his career and his history can have some context as we move into this conversation. Herbert Blomstedt was born in Sweden. Actually, he was born in the United States, but is actually a native of Sweden. Among the places that he studied music are the Stockholm Royal College of Music and Juilliard School. In February 1954, he made his debut as conductor with the Stockholm Philharmonic Orchestra. He has served as chief conductor of the Oslo Philharmonic and the Swedish and Danish radio orchestras, and music director here in the United States of the San Francisco Symphony, just to name a few of his assignments over the last 66 years. His list of guest conducting of the world's most preeminent orchestras is too long to even begin to discuss this morning, and he has received multiple honorary doctorates for his contributions. Dr. Herbert Blomstedt is currently 92 years of age. Is that correct? 92 years of age, and I hope you're listening to this to these next words. And he still conducts approximately 90 concerts per year, leading a variety of the world's most renowned orchestras. Welcome, Dr. Blomstedt. Here is the first question that we have for you this morning. You recently received a very special award. Among the many awards that you've received, you received one from the German Recording Critics. And among the words that they chose to describe you, they used a set of characteristics that they credited your Adventist upbringing to. And that is actually part of who you are known to be, not just a world-renowned conductor, but a dedicated Seventh-day Adventist. Tell us a little bit about your Adventist faith and why that award in particular was very meaningful to you.
Well, that kind of commentary I'm used to when I go to church. But to have it from the music criticism of the world, so to speak, is very unusual. Mostly they know it, but they don't mention it, or they don't care. But these people, they knew me well enough to see that this was a characteristic of my musical work also. So my person as a Christian influences my whole work. And I'm glad, of course, that they noticed that. There are many very good musicians in the world. And those who are at the top, they get lots of attention. But this kind of attention is very unusual.
You have not rehearsed on Friday evening or Saturday, Sabbath, for your entire career. Tell us a little bit about that commitment that you made.
Well, that was from the very beginning a stumble block. Even when I was graduating from college, there was in the paper that this young man, he doesn't take the exams on Sabbath. That was on the front page of the local papers. I was locked up in the Sabbath morning going to the college. And when others were writing their thesis, I was locked up in a room and watched by some teachers all day until sun went down. And then when sun went down, I was given the subject. And when I had my debut concert, also the reviews were not only telling about the concert, they said, this man, he does not rehearse on Sabbath. So that was a very interesting thing for the general public, which was a little bit unusual. But it has been very often a test of loyalty, and I never made any exceptions there. And it was in the beginning a little bit detrimental to my career, but I didn't care. The main thing was that I was loyal to my principles. And little by little they understood that. Today is absolutely no problem. They know it everywhere, and they arrange themselves in this way.
And as we get into the next question that Mark will lead us in, why do you choose to conduct on Sabbath? There's a differentiation that you make. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Why do you preach on Sabbath?
Excellent question.
I preach in music, but I do my preparation during the week. I study my scores. That's a lot of work. I start very early in the morning until midnight every day, except on Sabbath. On Sabbath, I give my sermon. I cannot, since everybody knows that I conduct or play for the glory of God. If they ask me, don't you want to glorify God on Sabbath? I don't have an answer. Of course I do. So I am ready to play for anybody who wants to listen, any time of day, any day of the week. But if they ask me to work with the orchestra, I say, no, this is work. There's a difference between preparation and the performance. I don't consider making music a work. That is almost a holy act. You have the full concentration of your audience. They are listening intently. And that is another word to say God is present. So I'm very happy to play also on Sabbath. And I often feel when I have the same program several nights, that the Friday evening concert is often the very best. I'm more relaxed, and I don't think of it immediately, but often think, why was this concert especially good? And I think one of the reasons is perhaps this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Blomstedt. Mark, lead us into the next series of questions.
We talked yesterday at length about your experiences around the world worshiping in Seventh-day Adventist congregations. And this conversation led us down so many. I wish you could have all been there. We really should have recorded that as well. This is fascinating. But several things jumped out. Many things did. But one is your statements, previous statements, and what we understand to be your belief that God is a God of order. Can you speak about that as it relates to music, both in the church and in the music that you do in the concert hall?
Well, certainly God is the God of order. It's stated very often in the Bible, but that concerns also in the arts. But you see in nature also, everything that is orderly and regulated and in perfect harmony and balance speaks of a good creator. And that is also the difference between very good and less good, or perhaps even bad music. That the good music is very orderly. It's composed to a certain plan. There are many layers of meaning at the same time, just as it is in a psalm in the 150 psalms in the Bible. When it says one thing, it means, of course, one thing on the surface. Below that, it means another thing, perhaps, even contrary, because even the Bible knows the context of irony. You know, when God says, or God says to Job, "Tell me, you who know so much." It's irony. Job knows that he doesn't know everything, and only God knows everything. So there's lots of layers of meaning. If I hear the music has only one meaning, perhaps only one rhythm, one word that is important, it does not interest me very much. But it has several meanings, sub-meanings that makes it very rich. That's the language of the Bible. That's also the language of classical music. Popular music is also wonderful. It can be, very entertaining, relaxing, and make you in a very good mood, but it doesn't last very long. But when it has several meanings, it is very serious at the same time. One of my last greatest orchestra was the Adventist Orchestra in Leipzig. And their motto is a quote from Seneca. Res severa verum gaudium, which means true joy is a serious matter. True joy, that's not having fun, that's not going to the games, that's not playing soccer, and that's not playing the cards or so. That's a pleasure for the moment. But true joy has a lasting influence. It's a serious business. And that's also the case with classical music. It's a serious business, even if it's very joyful, or even if it can be also very, very dramatic, it can also be very sad, but it has an undertone of joy. So it's very rich. Also in church music, the one that pleases me most and gives me more lasting joy and blessing is when it is rich in meaning. It's like poetry. To read a newspaper is no poetry. Just tell the facts, more or less true. Some fake facts also, you have to be able to watch it. But when it has several meanings, then it's really interesting.
Thank you. This leads us, of course, into a discussion of church music, which is one of the purposes for our gathering. And we spoke yesterday as well about this idea of intentionality. I know when you are planning concerts, do you just take a symphony here and a concerto there and throw them into the program? How do you approach your planning for concerts?
Well, if I have two pieces in the program, or three pieces, I try to choose the pieces that they throw light on each other. They can be more or less of the same variations of the same theme, or they can be completely contrasted. But one should give light on the other. That's the reason we put them together. I like that also. That is also a biblical principle. One text throws light on the other text. It says more or less the same, but in another way. Or it may contrast, say it completely differently. So that is also the way I put together a program. If I play two symphonies, there must be some order there between them, not in the order of the symphony themselves. But speaking of that, the most perfect program is where there's only one work that is for the whole evening. Then the composer has made the order. The order of the movement, the second movement following the first movement, the third movement following the second, throws light on each other, complement each other. And of course, the composer is the creator. He is God's follower in this respect. He's not a God, but he follows up on the principle of creation. And he creates his work so that the whole makes sense, and that one part makes sense in comparison to the other part. So he's the perfect program composer, as the composer. For instance, a Mahler symphony is 1 hour and a half, or a Bruckner symphony playing in a couple of weeks in Cleveland. Takes 75 minutes. Every note is calculated to throw light on the other. And that makes a wonderful whole.
Do you see parallels to this in the planning of worship music?
Yes, I think worship service should be a whole. And very often it is. Sometimes, sorry to say, it is not. One work throws the other work in the wastebasket. If you have a song, for instance, where the words are wonderful, but the music is contradictory, it annuls the words. If the music is wonderful, but the word does not fit, it doesn't enhance it other. It contradicts it other. The most wonderful church musician I know in history, and I'm a music historian also, not only a performer. There's a lot of wonderful Christian church music, starting from the very first centuries after the gospel were given, up to today. And the most wonderful church musician in all this history, Catholic, Protestant, Adventist, any denomination, was Johann Sebastian Bach. He happened to be one of my predecessors in Leipzig. He was the cantor of the Church of St. Thomas. And every service on Sunday morning was prepared not only by the pastor with his sermon, often very long, an hour long, sometimes more. They had patience on those times. But Johann Sebastian Bach, his cantor, he knew the text even beforehand. He knew that a year in advance, at least, what was the text. And he composed a cantata on the same words to enhance the effect of the sermon, of the Bible word. He chose the songs that would throw new light on that same subject, so that the whole service was one whole piece of art at the same time, and it was a blessing, spiritual blessing. He wrote almost 250 cantatas. It's enormous work, and they are all gems. Today, when we read the sermons of his pastors, you have to go to a library and big volumes, and you can perhaps read the sermons. Nobody listens to them today. Nobody has new editions of these sermons. But Bach's cantatas were performed every week over the whole world, and people fill the churches. So the music helps to give the gospel in the most wonderful way. But it must be on equal footing with the gospel, so to speak. It must be of the same quality. It must be imbued with order. Must be beautiful. Must say something. The message must be clear. And this is what Bach's music does. And I'm glad that you are playing some Bach this morning. I saw in the program. Wonderful. I even have a copy of his Bible at home. His Bible was found only about 50, 60 years ago in St. Louis, in America. His private Bible. How come? Well, a German immigrant apparently traveled to America, brought this Bible with him, and didn't pay very much attention. And when he died, the Bach Bible was found there. It's in 3 volumes, big volumes, huge volumes, and it's annotated by Bach himself. You can see some words underlined in the Bible, his commentaries in the margin with some mistakes, some commentaries, very wonderful reading. Bach was completely imbued in the Bible. He was a Protestant. He was a very convinced Christian. He was not always a very nice man. He taught at the St. Thomas School, children that were singing in his services. And he was very, very exacting. And he was not very pleased with his pastors always, had arguments with them. His pastors who worked on him, sometimes they said, for instance, in the St. John Passion, for Good Friday, it ends with a wonderful song about the dead Jesus. Wonderful. Wonderful music. But Bach added a chorale after that about the resurrection. And his pastor said, you cannot do that. This is Good Friday. Resurrection is the day after tomorrow. So he insisted on when the St. John Passion was repeated next year, he would take away the chorale and let it end with Jesus' death. Bach was very nice. He complied and made another ending. But the year afterwards, when he put back his chorale, and the chorale says, when the day of judgment come and you come back, and the dead are resurrected, resurrect also me, that I may be with you for eternity. A wonderful message of hope, private from the composer. But his pastor, no, it is Good Friday today, you must not do that. Bach insisted whenever he could. That shows that he was a very dedicated Christian and full of hope. And when he in his B minor Mass speak of the resurrection, his triumphant music, all goes upward. It's a message for everyone. It makes us thrill to listen to that.
Luckily, arguments between church musicians and pastors don't happen anymore, but it's really interesting to hear that. You introduced us to a hymn yesterday, and you sang through its contours and spoke of its text. And it's a hymn that we have in our hymnal here, of course, but we don't do it very often. And I wonder if we could take some time now for you to speak through or sing, as you did yesterday, this wonderful hymn. I'll have to go and get a hymnal, which I'll bring to you. But do you remember the one you introduced us to?
Jesu meine Freude, I
Thank
think
you.
it was.
That was one of them. And then there was also this...
239 is the Jesu meine Freude.
There was 347. This
yes.
Kirchen, yes.
Yes. I don't know if you know this hymn, Built on the Rock, 347. Built on the rock the church shall stand, even when steeples are falling. Crumble have spires in every land, bell stills are chiming and calling, calling the young and old to rest, calling the souls of those distressed. I'm not a tenor, so I cannot sing that high. Leaning for life everlasting. This is a hymn that stems from Norway. And it was written at the time of the Adventist movement start in the 1840s. As you hear it, it is in the minor key. But it's not a sad hymn. I think we have a popular notion that pieces in minor are sad, tragic. It's a funeral music, and you should avoid that in church. That's completely wrong. A minor key is a very rich key. It's a dramatic key, very powerful key. Major keys are wonderful, triumphant, bright things, but life is not always bright. In order to have the bright parts of life really stand out, there must be some dark surroundings. And that is what the minor key gives. A little bit lower, built on the rock, the church shall stand. La da dee do. It's easy to sing. La he, the triad. La he do do. Build it da 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 dee do dee. And the la da da dee do dee dee. La da da. It progresses stepwise. La da da. Easy to sing. That's one of the hallmarks of a good hymn, that it's easy to sing. La da da, stepwise. La da da re, do, re, re, do. Then it's repeated. And that's wonderful. That the text is new, but the music is repeating itself. La da he ho, do, re, ho, re. It goes down and it goes up. La da re, re, ho, re. There's a wonderful valley there. And then comes the top. The curve is different. First curve is like this. Second curve is like this. It's like a mountain range. And then comes the next set. Gives you the major key. It shines bright. And then comes the climax. Wonderful. The chest is widening with emotion. And are at home. The main note again. It's a wonderful melody. And when the text fits it, it says the same thing. It has a powerful effect. You want to sing it?
I do. And I would ask for you, so I had a conversation with, as I told you yesterday, with the bass player from the National Symphony Orchestra. And I asked him, well, and I didn't tell him that we were fellow Seventh-day Adventists, so I didn't want him to bias him. I said, we were talking about different conductors and said, oh, this one, well, we don't like him so much. I said, what do you think about Maestro Herbert Blomstedt? He said, oh, we like him. And then he asked his colleagues, when is he here? When is he coming again? Can he come here again? So you need to go and call the National Symphony. They want you to come sing there. The reason that I mention this is, would you give this congregation the kinds of instructions that you would give to one of your orchestras before they perform a hymn like this, in order to get from them the best that they could possibly do, to give them this sense of meaning? Tell this group of people here, they want to sing, but ordinarily in Sabbath school, they don't really sing that well sometimes. So make that change for them and inspire, and I'll go to the organ.
Would you play the hymn through once on the organ? And we'll sing the first stanza. And you sing to me, I'll sing together with you. And then when we sing the first stanza, I'll make a comment.
That is hymn 347. 347.
347. Built on the rock, a church shall stand, even when steeples are falling, crumble have spied in every land, bells still are chiming and tolling, calling the and old to death, calling the souls of those who rest, longing for life everlasting. Well sung, well sung. Well, it's a new hymn for many of you, so I understand it's not easy to get the tempo immediately, but you will get it. Important is that the rhythm is fresh, that it's not too slow, and not in the 19th century, when our movement was born, it was a notion that when the music is slow, it's more sacred. It's completely wrong. The gospel is a happy gospel. It's not trivial, by no means, but it's happy. It has an undertone of positiveness and optimism. And every phrase has to be able to be sung in one breath. And you cannot do that. La, ha, he, he, la, ha, ha, la. You have to sing it in one breath. La, hi, ha, ra, 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 di. Breathe. La, ra, di, ha, ra, di, ho. You have enough air for one sentence, that sets the tempo. Now let's sing it again, the same stanza. They rock the church and stand, even when steeples are rolling, crumble have spot in every lamp, bells still are chiming and calling the young and old to rest, calling the souls of those distressed, longing for life everlasting. Wonderful, thank you so much. The high point of the music, of the melody, is the next last stanza. Calling the souls of those distressed. Go up to the highest note, la, the highest note, la, ra, 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 ra. On that high the falls, la, 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 la. It's almost like a rocket, la, it has a physical effect. It's very well calculated. And the text is often the high point also. Calling the souls of those distressed, that's me, I am one of them. So when you sing this, well, this is music for me. This is a message for me. He's calling me. And later it says that the real temple of God is my body. Which is what the Bible says. It's the holy temple of God is your body. It's a wonderful thought. So it's just a hymn about the church and the blessings of the church. But it says that God does not dwell in houses that we have built. And even the temple in the heaven, well, something they know how that looks like. I don't. I think it is, God gave us a blueprint how he wanted the temple to be built on earth. But I cannot imagine what kind of house he has up there, some light years away. It's not my business, but I know it must be great, since God is great. But the miracle, he wants to dwell also with me. And this hymn tells it, in a most wonderful way. So it gives us a blessing.
Dr. Blomstedt, emphasize again for us the relationship between the words and the notes in a hymn. When we sing, in general, we are maybe either paying attention, if we are paying attention, to one or the other. But emphasize again the relationship between the melody the notes and the words contained in the hymn.
Well, let's take another hymn, 239, Jesus, Priceless Treasure. It's an even simpler but not less wonderful hymn than the one that we sang. It's a very classic hymn that Bach, by the way, used many, many times. You know this, I think you often sing it. I hope you sing it often, that you must sing the best hymns in these wonderful hymns. Sing the best ones, not the secondary good ones. No, sing the best ones. And of course you have to know which the best ones are. I don't know how you find that out. The best hymn for you is what you like. That's a natural reaction, but that's not true. I might like the most popular hymns, which are not the best. The majority, you know, as a Christian, does not always be right. Often the minority is right. At least we Adventists, we are quite a minority compared to many other churches. I still think we are right in some things at least. So what you think, what you like, happen to like, is not necessarily the best. You should search for the best. You have to learn what is best. And any day that you don't learn anything is a lost day. This is one of the very best hymns. And it's also so simple, and that is one of the characteristics of a good hymn, that it's simple. Can you play that for us, please? Wonderful hymn, wonderful hymn. In German, it's Jesu meine Freude, which means Jesus my joy. It's a nice translation that we have here, but the original is matchless, of course. If you can, try to learn the hymns in the original language, that give you additional blessing. But the melody is the same. Jesus, priceless treasure, also in the minor mode. Is it sad? I don't think so. It's very powerful. It starts on what we call the dominant, and it's very important. And it goes down, you know, stepwise. That's the best signal of a good hymn, that it goes stepwise. You know, not loud, like that, all over, but stepwise. And the motion goes down, so it's home. Oh, that's home. Oh. And next phrase is the opposite. La de ro de ho. La he ho goes upward. La ho ho he ho. New interval. When it ends, the first phrase ends the la de he ho. The ho is a universal in music, a feeling that you are preparing to go to rest. He ho. If you hear the melody and would skip the last note, you'll feel it's incomplete. Li ti 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 ti. Oh, you have to have that last note. That's where you belong. That's home. You know? And then you go upward. Also, lo, the step was down. Lord, but you're not satisfied. It must be an ending. Lord, then the home again on a higher level. Symbolism. Your home here on earth, I also have a home up there. In heaven or in your thoughts, very elevated, someplace you want to be. You are here, but you want to be there, And the music, you are there. How wonderful, I am there. And then you repeat it with a new text. And then comes the middle section, then you have the major mode. Everything is sunshine again. Do you notice that the two last bars are the same as in the beginning? Exactly the same notes. But in another context, it takes another meaning. Same music, but another meaning. In the beginning, it is just the beginning, but the end, it has its final. So that's an example of how the same notes can mean different things. Let us sing that hymn together. 3. Jesus, Jesus, precious, source of purest pleasure, truest friend to me. Oh, how long I panted, and my heart has fainted, thirsting, Lord, for thee. Thine I am, O speechless Lamb. I will suffer not to hide thee, not I ask besides thee. Did you notice in the next last line, you say, thirsting, Lord, for thee. It's a longing there. La, 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 la. Notice that there's not the fermata there. And we so often have, also in some of the hymns of the book, at the end there's a fermata, it's from the opera. La, 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 la. That doesn't have a place in the hymnal. This is for a solo voice. A solo voice can make something out of that fermata. But in the whole congregation, where should they stop? Da, 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 up there. No fermatas. The expression and the joy and the emotion come from the music itself, not from the performance of a high note. Which really exposes how well we can sing, how good the singers are. And that's not what we want to hear, church. We want to know how great God is, not how great the singer is. Interesting. I must tell you a short story. I hope it will be brief. I had an experience once with this hymn. It is a part of a motet by Bach in many movements, about 12 movements. There are 6 stanzas, and they sing the first stanza first, and then comes a verse from Romans 8. Bach knew his Bible. Romans 8 and the first, there is no condemnation for those who are in Jesus Christ. And Bach, he does like this, there's no condemnation, absolutely no rest, condemnation. There's a sermon there, it stresses no condemnation. Not even if your pastor says, or your priest or the Pope says, you are condemned, you are not a member of my church. There's no condemnation if you are in Jesus Christ. the first commentary, then the second stanza of the chorale, then another movement by Bach, another verse from Romans 8. It's a whole sermon. I once came back from a tour in Japan with my orchestra in Leipzig. It was a Friday evening. I was tired. I wanted above all to sleep. And it was Sabbath, a perfect day to rest. But I learned that the Bach festival had just started in Leipzig. And that evening, Friday evening, there was a concert in the Nikolai Church where Bach also played. He played in St. Thomas Church, and next Sunday in Nikolai Church. And next in the Thomas again. Next time he divided himself. And they were singing, a choir from Sweden was singing, who were my friends. The Swedish radio choir, and the conductor Erik Eriksson was one of my favorite colleagues, wonderful choral master. And they, of course, knew that I was active in Leipzig, so I thought I would like to go and see them and hear them sing again, the most wonderful chorus that I know. And meet my friend also who was conducting them. And they were singing this in the beginning. So I asked my secretary to give me 2 tickets. It was sold out, but I always have some reserve ticket for me. I got 2 tickets, but I didn't have a companion. I asked my secretary to want to go with me. No, she couldn't. And I asked some other colleagues, they couldn't. They were back from Japan, they wanted to rest, so they couldn't. I went alone. So I thought, like Abraham, you know, God will show the sacrifice animal with Isaac. He will show. So I thought I will find somebody. And when I came to the church, I found somebody. There was a man standing there. He looked helpless, and he had a sign on his breast. He said, "Homeless." He was just standing outside the church. Here's my guest. He didn't look very tidy. He was unshaved. He smelled a little bit of alcohol. But he was standing there, looked lost. So I asked him, would you want to go with me into the church and hear the concert? And he protested. He looked at himself. Me? No. Yes, you are my guest. Please come with me. It's free. Come with me. So we went into the church, and the church was already full. We had seats number 1 and 2 in front. We had to walk through all those people, and I'm not unknown in Leipzig. I just wonder what they thought when I went up there with this drunkard. But I had cast the dice, you know, I had to play my game. So I walked with him, and we sat there in place 1 and 2. And the chorus started to sing this hymn, Jesus meine Freude, priceless treasure. And the man at my side, he practiced, why do you do this? He was unrestful. Why do you do it? Well, you are my friend. So you are my friend. And then he was quiet. And when they came to the 3rd stanza here, hence all fears and sadness, for the Lord of gladness, Jesus, enters in. He sighed. I heard him deeply moved. And he was quiet for the rest of the concert. A few days afterwards, I got a letter from him. And he told me that he was an alcohol addict, but he had decided from that evening on, he will not drink anymore. I found the sacrifice through this hymn. It had already transformed millions of people's lives. And this is, the hymn is a priceless treasure in its own right. Use these hymns, sing them, meditate on the text, and enjoy the wonderful music.
Dr. Blomstedt, let's stay with your story for just a moment, because in a previous interview you said that both the music leader, both the worship leader and the congregant together ought to be, and you use the word seekers. think about the story that you just told us and unpack that for us. What does it mean for all of us to come to music as seekers in the Christian context?
Well, as an artist, I have the feeling that we are all seekers. We seek perfection, at least that, in our art. We want to play better, we want to sing better, perhaps we want to preach better. We always want to do better. I think it's natural for us all, even for a small child, if we want to grow, to develop. He feels or she feels that there's some talent there, but we want to develop so that we can do something with it. And I think that we all have to be seekers, also as Christians. If we are only finders, we certainly have found things. We are happy and grateful for it. But if you stay there, you will never be perfect. I think we will not ever be perfect until we are transformed. But we should remain seekers. And that makes us, that they will believe in us, that we are sincere. People who tell me that they know the whole truth, it's like dictators. Trump knows the whole truth. Hitler knew the whole truth. Stalin knew the whole truth. Marx, Lenin, they know the whole truth. Don't believe them. Don't believe these people. People who tell they know everything, don't believe them. But if they are seekers, they seek the truth. They know what they have found, but that's not the complete. Mrs. White was a seeker. She was a seeker. She also says repeatedly, don't stay where you are. There's new truth, hidden truth that you have to find. Never stop seeking. And that's also what we do in music. That's what you are doing, or what all three of us are doing. We seek something even better. The hidden truth, you know. This typical of the gospel is like a gem that is hidden in what you call in the field. You know, have to seek for it and sacrifice anything to find it. And that's not a one thing. It's not a one thing experience. It's a continual experience. You have to seek for more, and that makes you that they believe in you. That's what I like also when reading Mrs. White. This aspect, she found much truth, but she did not find all truth. She didn't pretend to find all truth. And those who say today that she knew the whole truth, they are completely wrong. Then she was wrong. She said, I have not found the whole truth. You have to seek for more. I think that is the essence of also a good church that looks for more. Ecclesiam sempre reformans, the reformers say. The church will always be a reformed church. It must reform itself. That's a crucial thing for the church, because the church by nature is conservative. You know, we have found something, and we must identify with that, you know, and keep that identification. You know? But that's right. We have to keep our identification, but still not think that we are perfect. There's still more to be found. We must go on. And I think that is part of the musical truth. And we musicians, we are lucky that we work with something where we feel that we know something, but we know only in part. You know, we are looking for something still better. And when we have a congregation or a choir or an orchestra that shares the same spirit, we are very happy.
I do think that that's one of the greatest gifts that we have, and what I appreciate so much about your life, with all of your accomplishments, all of your experience, is that you recognize that in music is a metaphor for that seeking of truth, that it's never an arrival. You never come to the end of a performance of something and say, there it is, I did it, I've done everything I wanted to do. There's always more. I see by the clock that we're coming to the end of our time. But I just want to thank you so much for being an inspiration, not only for musicians in the church such as myself, but also for everyone. And I think one of the takeaways that I am coming away with from our conversations is, and something that I hope to pass on to this congregation, is just how valuable that book that you have in your hands there. We can take it for granted. It's just in the hymn racks all the time. But in that is contained such an amazing trove of music that is, in some cases, 1,000 years old, and the text of which we really do deserve to pay more attention to. Thank you very much for being with us today here at the Spencerville Church. And from all of us, we want to extend our blessings to you as you travel. Your next concert is in Philadelphia. And tell us what you're playing as we close. What is on the program so that we can salivate?
In Philadelphia, we played Symphony Pathetique by Berlioz and the Mendelssohn Piano Concerto. In Cleveland, we played the Bruckner Fifth Symphony. And in Chicago, it was the Brahms Second Symphony. Brahms' Second Symphony, by the way, was the work that marked the conversion of Cliff Goldstein, musically speaking. He tells in an Adventist review piece some 5-6 years ago that he was in a hospital for some treatment, and he listened to the radio and heard Brahms' Second Symphony in D major, Opus 73, he even said in the headline, and that completely changed his attitude to music. He even thought that this was a proof of God's existence, even, because no man could possibly write so beautiful music, so well-ordered music, so beautiful, without a connection with God.
Thank you, Dr. Blomstedt. And by the way, if you've ever wondered what it's like to be in one of the orchestras conducted by Dr. Blomstedt, today you've taken us through that experience. Thank you so much for that once-in-a-lifetime moment. And as Mark said, thank you for joining us here for this hour today.
Thank you.